What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very crazy day as we have CPI data coming out, not to mention big bank earnings. And also what Elon Musk is saying about Tesla, it's very important. And the last thing is we also have some updates from President Trump, which I'll talk about involving his tariffs, because he's giving us some very important updates. So before I talk about Tesla and go over the details about all this news affecting us and why tomorrow is going to be so big, just know two things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. You also qualify for an 8.1% APY in uninvested cash, and the offer ends at the end of July. Anyways, check out my link down below or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. Now let's talk about what's happening with Tesla and the markets. So as far as Tesla's going, as you guys can tell, we're looking a bit more bullish. We have this nice accumulation that's been forming. Tesla loves to bounce off this 292 zone, right? The low 290s. Although there's tough resistance around 320, we could continue to uptrend and once again try to get back up here. So please keep that in mind. That's going to be very key for how we end up moving. But we're also kind of range bound here, and I do think there is some potential to go higher if we get the good data we need. The market's also looking a bit more bullish. SPY has a potential cup and handle. So does the QQQ. But like I said before, nothing is guaranteed until we see the data. We have to wait and see what happens with all this important data that's coming out, what's going to happen with our CPI data, and all of the very important pieces of data involving our big bank earnings and such. So can Tesla break out from here? I'm going to give you guys more answers in just a couple of minutes. Just note that on the daily time frame, it is technically looking a little bit indecisive. It was looking more bullish initially, and I still think it's very possible we pump more if we get some good data. So I'm going to give you guys my prediction in just a couple of minutes. But I first want to go over some data and then break down what that means for Tesla. So some news that came out right now, Goldman Sachs is giving Tesla more of a neutral rating. However, despite that, keep in mind that we also have the price-price ratio climbing right here. This is a sign that Tesla's gaining some strength compared to the market. So it's still showing some strength. Now, on Tuesdays, Tesla tends to be green about 51.54% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility at 10 a.m. and also at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep all of that in mind. That's going to be very key for how Tesla ends up moving, at least moving forward. Now, when it comes to Elon Musk, he said some very important things. Elon Musk is saying that he would like, or he's being asked if he would like Tesla to invest into his AI company, XAI. He said that he has considered the relationship, but he does not want to see a merger between Tesla and XAI. So let me just clarify that. However, he said that that's what he said, in the past as well. And right now, they're going to have a shareholder vote on the matter. So he's not officially saying this is what's going to happen. He gave his opinion on the matter, but he is saying that he's going to leave it to the shareholders to decide. He does not think that they should merge. They should kind of keep things separate. And I agree with his decision on that. I think Tesla should be a lot more focused on trying to get their sales up for now and try to focus on what it's going to take to help improve their sales. And that's the reason why Tesla is now going to be entering India. So Tesla is going to be opening its first showroom in the country of India on July 15th in Mumbai. This is important news because the event that's going to take place will happen from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. local time. And this should be very, very good news, especially if this helps get their sales up. This may also incentivize more people and more audiences to help look at their cars and get things together. That is some good news in my opinion. Also, Tesla's aiming to bring its driverless taxis, the robo-taxis, into California and then Arizona. For now, the most likely thing that's going to happen is maybe in Arizona, we get the approval quickly because by the end of this month, we should be looking for the approval. And then Musk said that in 1 month or two, we could be looking for the big regulatory approvals in California, particularly in the Bay Area, San Francisco region. So that could be very, very big for Tesla. That is part of why Tesla's still outperforming the market. So lots of good news for Tesla, which is helping this push. But whether we get a big breakout to the upside or the downside could be greatly affected by CPI and the others. So let's focus on tomorrow. Then I'll break down President Trump's quotes, and then I'll talk about the charts in just a couple of minutes. So as a reminder, tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, July 15th, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the very notorious CPI report. Keep in mind that for a CPI, we're expecting between a 0.2 and 0.3% increase for pretty much everything. For core CPI, all items CPI month over month and year over year, we're expecting a 0.2 to 0.3% increase for everything. And keep that in mind. That's very, very important. Now, why is this happening? What does this mean? Well, when you look at some data such as our CPI chart relative to crude futures, there's a very, very high correlation between crude futures and CPI. And if you look at the chart back in the month of if you look back a couple of months ago, there was a lot of time when we saw this big downtrend in crude futures. But crude futures formed a bottom in May, and then going from May to June, there was a big increase, about a 10% increase in crude oil futures prices, which suggests that there's a very high probability there's going to be an increase in CPI. That's most likely what's going to happen tomorrow, at least for all items. Looking at the charts, you guys could see that when we go back historically, okay, there tends to be an increase right over here. All items CPI is the blue line right here. Since the year started, it's been on a downtrend, but now it's starting to curl. And there's a very, very good chance this might go a little bit higher tomorrow, in my opinion. For all items without food and energy, this has been very flat. We're going to see if this balances as well or not, depending on CPI and other factors. But for now, there's a very, very good chance we see a slight increase in CPI, at least for all items. So be very careful about that. Could that cause the market to dip and then bounce, or does the market keep running? It depends. Another big factor is going to be this. Tomorrow, before the market opens, we have JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, and BlackRock all announcing their earnings. What these big banks announce could have a big effect on other banks. Simultaneously, could be affecting the overall market because of the finance sector that's very huge. So make sure you're ready for this, guys. This is going to be very, very key for the way at which the market is going to move. So watch the big bank earnings. Jamie Dimon has said that he is anticipating there's about a 40 to 50% chance the Fed has to increase rates again if we see another surge in inflation because of the tariffs. And then as far as the expectations go, we are expecting some decent earnings. We are seeing lots of big firms increasing their price targets for JP Morgan and also for Morgan Stanley. That could be a good sign for us. So I do think that they're going to do well for earnings. That's what's been happening the last couple of months. But what concerns me about this is that I'm not too sure about their guidances because of the possibility of the Fed having to keep rates higher for longer. So keep that in mind. Last but not least, the fear and greed index is currently at extreme greed. Momentum's at greed, and then so are our other indicators that are at greed. Even the VIX is neutral right now, so keep all of that in mind. That's going to be very important for how we end up moving. So that being said, let's talk about President Trump, and then I'm going to break down the charts. Just give me a couple more minutes. President Trump said that he wants to increase tariffs to 30% on the EU and Mexico. He repeated that today. He wants to start the increase as soon as August 1st. And he mentioned that for now, he's going to give them time to negotiate. He mentioned that he's not really happy with the way Mexico is doing business and that the EU needs to do a lot of improvements. He's just not happy with them, and that's why he's threatening these higher tariffs. He's not happy about the trade deficits. He said it's a national security threat, and that's why it's very important. And then on top of this, the European Union have said that they actually want to threaten the US back with higher tariffs. However, they're going to delay the tariffs. So we had the European trade chief come out, and he was saying that this is going to be very negative for both sides, and he's hoping we come to a deal as soon as possible. We had some news that come out about how the EU wants to increase tariffs on about 21 billion euros worth of goods, or $24.5 billion worth of goods, but they're going to delay that in case we do get some kind of deals. That's what they're saying so far. They're prepared to retaliate. So that's some big news that's come out. President Trump also said that what Mexico has done is not enough. That's what President Trump said in his letter. And he's saying that our relationship, unfortunately, is far from reciprocal. He said that once again in these different letters, once again threatening even more tariffs all over again. He also said he wants to impose 50% tariffs on Brazil in retaliation because of the trade deficits. And then President Trump said that he wants to increase tariffs on Russia to 100% unless we get a deal with Russia in the next 50 days. So he said he's very unhappy with Russia. This is his quote right over here. He's disappointed with Putin because he thought we would have a deal 2 months ago, and now he's giving them 50 days to make a deal to end this war with Ukraine, or else we're going to be threatening 100% tariffs. President Trump does not care. President Trump has been going on about this for quite a while. He once again wants to increase more tariffs, but there have been different analysts saying that this is just his negotiation tactic, so keep that in mind. That's going to be very important for what we see in the future. Finally, President Trump has been criticizing Jerome Powell, saying he needs to cut rates as soon as possible. And then he's urging Jerome Powell to step down. And he did not say he wants to fire him, but he is saying that he's just not happy with him. So keep that in mind. It's the same thing we typically talk about every single day. So, with that being said, guys, I just want to focus primarily on the charts now and kind of like ignore politics. Let's break down exactly what's going to likely happen. So, as far as Tesla goes, we are looking more bullish, but there's a very, very tough resistance at 325. Now, if Tesla ends up losing our key support at that 309 area, there's going to be a risk of Tesla dipping a lot lower, especially when you look at these levels right here. So tomorrow, if we get a bad CPI, bad data, look at 309. If that fails us, we're looking for 303. If we're bullish, you want to break 320 to start pushing back up to 325 plus. Those are your bullish and bearish cases. I think that based off what I'm seeing, the market might gap down tomorrow, but then we could still bounce all over again because of the fact that the market just keeps on getting bought back up and because historically July is such a bullish month. So could we dip? Yes, Tesla could retest 309 or so, but then there's a good chance we try to bounce back up to 320 in case we do get some kind of bounce because buyers keep on defending Tesla. As long as we don't lose 303, we're looking quite fine. I do think we might dip a little bit before we try to bounce at least moving forward. And by the way, guys, sorry if I'm talking kind of fast. I have a lot of stocks to go over. I want to make this video around under 20 minutes. We'll see if I can achieve that. Anyways, for SPY, I think this is also going to dictate Tesla because Tesla tends to move very similar to SPY and the QQQ. We have a cup and handle. The bullish case is that we break out above this 625 to 627 area to make new all-time highs. The bearish case is going to be that we fail right here at 622, and then we end up losing 617-ish, very close to our 50 EMA to start dumping. I think it's going to be a mix of both. I predict that we might actually gap down tomorrow and retest 622, but you could draw a trend line here, and then we might try to bounce, then eventually try to fill the gap back up towards all-time highs to form a cup and handle. I think that's what's going to likely happen, to dip in a bounce. Maybe CPI is a little hot and we dip a little bit, but then we might bounce again. I'm going to talk more about why I think that in just a few minutes once I go over the VIX. But I just want to say that's very, very likely what's going to end up happening because every time we're dipping, we keep on getting bought back up. And then simultaneously, there's a lot of manipulation right now because of the options chains and how many puts are expiring. Looking at the QQQ, same thing. We like to reject near 557, but get bought back up around 550. Might be dipping to 552 to 550. Then we'll see if we bounce back up off that area. That's what I'm anticipating. But in case we're really bullish, the bullish cases we basically hold above 557 to break to new all-time highs. And the bearish cases we lose 552 and start dumping back down. Now, in all honesty, I can't make promises, okay? It depends on the data that's coming out. We can't make promises about this stuff. But what I anticipate is that we might see a small dip on the QQQ as we're at some tough resistance, retest 554 to 552, then bounce back up. That's what I think is going to likely happen tomorrow. That's my prediction for now. On the IWM, we're going to see, is this going to be a head and shoulders, a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder? If we lose 219, we're looking for a dip lower towards like 215. But there's also this falling wedge breakout. We have a gap to fill up to 224, which makes me suspect that this could retest 222 or even like 220, but then we might be bouncing and trying to push to fill that gap to get back up to the highs, especially as we still have this inverse head and shoulders in the much larger time frames, which could imply we might be going even higher. That could be very, very bullish for stocks for now. So please keep that in mind. In terms of ES, we're looking for 62.94 as our support and then 62.77. But if we break 6,300 and hold above that, we're going to be looking for an attempt for all-time highs. I anticipate a test of basically 62.94 to 62.80 consolidation. If CPI is too hot, we could be dumping a lot lower, but as long as we hold, we could be looking for a big rebound back up to the all-time high. And that's what I think is going to happen. We kind of dip a little bit, but then we get bought back up again as they like to manipulate the options chains and the price levels because of what's happening so far. On NQ, we like to reject near 23,000, but we also like to get bought back up around 22,800. If we lose 22,800, we're more bearish. It's always possible we dump in case we get really bad data. But I anticipate we could dip a bit towards the 22,800 area, then bounce and try to push back up towards 23,000. So please keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're dipping a bit. We have to see if 118,500 holds. If not, we could be dipping a lot more. So watch this support to see if we rebound. If it does, we're going to be looking a lot better. For Tesla's looking pretty good. Like I said before, we're favoring 320. If we end up losing 309, we're looking for a big dump, but I do favor a potential test near these areas before it attempts to bounce again. I still think we look a bit more bullish, at least technically speaking, but we'll see. Depending on the data, we obviously can't make promises. With NQ, and sorry, not NQ, Nvidia, excuse me. Nvidia is going to likely test 162.9. Looks a little bit weaker. We got to hold this to bounce back up to like 165. If we don't hold 162, I'm looking for like 160 flat. So be a little bit careful with Nvidia. 160 to 162 should be tested, but then we'll see if we bounce off that support. So please keep that in mind. For Aapl, we have something very similar that's going on. Okay, Aapl is once again trying to push lower. We have a double top right here. We need to get back above 210 to rebound if we can. To do that, we're actually favoring 205 to be tested or even below that. And then off this resistance becoming support right here around 203 to 205. We'll see if Aapl bounces like that. But for now, we do look a bit more bearish. On Netflix, we're making lower highs and lower lows. We need to break and hold above 1270 to break out higher. If we hit 1270 and then reject, we could turn back down. I have a feeling it's going to push a bit higher for 1270 than see if it rejects. In case it rejects off this trend line right here, that's going to be like a more bearish case just in case. So keep that in mind, especially as time goes on for Netflix. For MicroStrategy, we look a bit more bullish. If we lose 441, we're looking for this gap fill. But as long as we're above 450, we're favoring upside. As of right now, I think we consolidate around 450, and then we could start to break out higher for the 460s. Please keep that in mind. Celsius is favoring 46. As long as we don't lose 45.27, we're favoring attempts to bounce. We have nice wicks forming here, and as long as we're above 45.43, we're favoring 46 or so. Supermicro looks a bit more bullish. We're kind of rejecting, making lower highs here. I want to see us basically hold 48. We'll see if we end up kind of like dipping here and if we make a nice rebound or not. So please keep that in mind. If we lose 48, though, we're looking for a bigger dump. But I do think that there's a strong possibility we dip and bounce. So keep that in mind. Palantir looks more bullish to me. We have to see if 150 breaks. If it does, we're looking for 152. And if we lose support at 145, we're looking for a dip to 142.5. So I think this looks a bit more bullish. So just keep that in mind. Rivian is making lower highs here. It's falling. So we're going to see if we could hold 13 or not. I think the odds favor 12.5, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. SoFi is consolidating. It's going to be very reactive to the big bank earnings. If we lose 20.6, we're looking for a bigger dump. But as long as we hold this, we're going to consolidate and then start pushing for 22 plus. AMD is looking more bullish. As long as we don't lose 143, we're favoring 148 plus. ARM is looking a little bit weaker. I could see this try to retest 147.5, and we'll see if it rejects here. Look for some upside, and we'll see if it gets a rejection or not. PayPal is favoring 74.26 to 75, and we'll see if it rejects. I still anticipate a little bit of a dip and then a bounce back up towards 75, and we'll see how it ends up reacting from there. Coinbase is in the middle. If we break 400, we're bullish, but if we end up losing support down here, we're looking for basically 387. Look for some consolidation, see if we dip. I do think we just consolidate for now. Amazon could be dipping back down towards 224, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Look for 224, and we'll see if we bounce or not from here, but I do anticipate some downside, at least for now. Meta looks more bullish. I want to see us basically hold 722. As long as it holds, we're looking for basically 730. I do think there's a good chance we try to bounce a bit looking at the technicals, so I'll be watching that very closely. Google needs to hold above 183. If it does, we're going for at least 185. As long as we don't lose 177, we look a bit more bullish on Google. Microsoft is on a slight uptrend. As long as we don't lose 501, we're also favoring the upwards direction, and this could be favoring an attempt to get back up towards these highs. So look for 501. If we lose that, we're dumping. But as long as we can hold 500 to 501, this could still bounce. Maybe it dips a bit before it tries to bounce for these higher lows. Let me go over just a few more. DJT is looking a little bit weak as well right here. Keep in mind that it's slowing down. We have a head and shoulders like pattern, and we need to get back above 18.6. Otherwise, it's favoring 17.8. The VIX, could this bounce right here? We need to bounce off 17 flats to push higher. If not, we could be dumping to fill the gap around the 16s. I think what's going to happen is maybe this goes up a little higher. Maybe the market gaps down tomorrow because of CPI. But as time goes on, what if the VIX starts dumping again and comes back down to fill that gap? That could be a sign the market kind of like dips and then bounces throughout the day, right? It's a strong possibility. We'll see just to be safe. The 10 years kind of flat here. It could be going either way. The dollar looks a bit more bullish, and so does crude. So these are all going to be very, very impacted by what we're seeing so far. So is the market bullish or bearish? Honestly, guys, technically speaking, we are a little bit more bullish. Even Tesla looks like it wants to be pushing to 320 all over again. But I am not a fortune teller. I don't know what's going to happen with CPI or all this data. So it's very important to be conscious of what we don't know, which is why you want to manage risks and be very careful on days like this. So I don't know if the market's going to gap up or gap down. I do think we might gap down then bounce. That's what I am predicting, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with the big bank earnings. We'll see if President Trump says anything that's big, and we'll see what happens with all this news involving Tesla. So please, thank you all so much for listening, and make sure you watch your levels just to be safe. I'll be back tomorrow before the market opens to give you guys another update on all this data. It's going to be very crazy. So get ready for a lot of volatility tomorrow, most likely. Hopefully, we get some volatility. I know the market's been very choppy for now, but be patient, guys, because there's going to be a lot of volatility in August, most likely. August and September tend to be very volatile. So be ready for all of that. And I thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your guys' days. And I'll see you guys tomorrow before market open. Thank you for listening, and peace out.